that will reach you, that will basically reach me, I should say, live for this conversation. Basically, what I'm doing here is essentially amounts to a conventional radio program, except it's entirely online. But in that capacity, I can do anything that a regular radio show can do, including taking calls. And your call and your voice will go over the air, and we can discuss issues of the day. To do that, you can call 617-396-4958. That number again is 617-396-4958. And of course, I do this great thing that I do, this enjoyable thing, sort of in the tradition of past radio programs, Monday through Friday from 12 noon to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I've got various guests lined up this week, and on Wednesday, actually, you might stay tuned at 3 o'clock. I'm being joined by Josh Bernstein, who is the host of Josh Bernstein Uncensored. He is in Maricopa County right now. He lives in Arizona, and he's one of the chief people, one of the kingpins in terms of ensuring that the recount go forward there. The Arizona State Senate has ordered a complete forensic recount of 1.2 million ballots in that state. It is due to start April 22nd, which I believe is Thursday. Josh will be on this program on Wednesday at 3 p.m. to give us an update on what's happening on that. There has been enormous opposition to it from certainly from the Democrats, but also from the establishment Republicans, and a lot of scorn heaped on people. They're being accused of being insurrectionists and terrorists and every other name you could think of, all because they want to do a complete, finally, after many, many months after the November election, they want to conduct a complete forensic audit of the vote, where the ballots will be looked at by a third party, by a cyber expert group. And also, there will be volunteers there from both the Democrat and Republican side, sitting at the table as the recount unfolds, which of course was not the case after the election, where people, Republicans anyway, were kept like 12 feet away. We all remember those visuals emanating out of Wayne County, Michigan, where you saw, the windows, the doors being locked, and the windows being covered by empty pizza boxes to make sure that nobody could look in. Well, finally, here we are 5 months later, right? And I guess they're finally going to do, hopefully, God willing, and under great opposition, a complete recount. And we will finally get to the bottom, hopefully, although I'm not totally optimistic. But, I think that we're doing the best we can here. We'll finally get to the bottom of the actual vote in that state. Now, we should recall that there were enormous conflicts. And by the way, it wasn't just in the 2020 election. Apparently, Arizona has had problems with successive elections every 2 years, going back decades. But there was great controversy, not just in terms of fake ballots being cast and people who had passed away, and out-of-state ballots entering in, and the paper ballots, and the mail drops, and the lock boxes, and the lowering of the standards of the absentee ballots. But there was questions on all sides, including the electronic aspect to this. Somebody made kind of a funny comment. They said that the Catholic Church should offer Biden a sainthood because he was able to bring back millions of people from the dead on election day. Anyway, this is all to transpire on April 22nd in Maricopa County. They've actually rented out a major, I think a stadium, it looks to me, to conduct the activity, and that Josh Bernstein will be my guest on Wednesday, the Wednesday before the Thursday, to give us an update. And by the way, the side issue as well is that according to Josh, who has been talking about this on various programs, he feels that there's evidence that not only have heavy hitters from the Biden campaign and administration come in to try to do whatever they can to stop the proceeds, including attorney Mark Elias, who played a major deep stater, who played a major role in the entire election last time. But the law firm of Perkins Coie, which is Hillary Clinton's law firm, they've been involved in a lot of big, establishment left programs going way back. And that on the street level, there are rumors, and again, I'm not here to confirm it, that hotel rooms are being rented and people are setting up from organizations possibly like Antifa. I don't want to be that alarmist, and BLM. Now, I don't know if that's true, but it would make sense that these sort of the street thugs, the shock troops is what Lenin called them, of the left, who operate on the street while the top 1%ers operate in the boardrooms, that they wouldn't come down and try to create trouble and disturbances and further the agenda of attacking these amazing patriots in that state, who are just trying to get to the bottom and find out what happened in that election. And by the way, if at the end of the day, they do this full forensic audit and they examine the ballots and they find out that Biden won, I'll accept that. I mean, that's it's just a matter of getting to the truth. And if they were so concerned about, I mean, if they're so confident, why are they engaging in this kind of, hostile, classic leftist activity to try to disrupt these proceeds? Okay, I've got a text here. Democrats and Republicans have both bankrupted America, $30 trillion in debt. Yeah, well, I think that's true. There's, the administrations are afraid to not spend because it'll be unpopular. They will be seen as promoting starvation. I think that it's a very complex economic question. The other day I listened to a lot of history podcasts, and there was a history podcast on why the Nazis came to power in Germany in 1933. And of course, it's a complex question, but one of the things that was brought up was that the Brüning government, Heinrich Brüning, who was kind of a slightly right of center prime minister before Hitler, he wanted to conduct classic economic policy of cutting the size of government, cutting the budget, cutting back on all agencies, and accepting the fact that there would be a temporary dislocation and depression, because that would only be quick, but that the end result would be that the economy would correct itself and it would move on, rather than have like a 10-year gradual recession that results from overspending. And so he put in this policy, and it was extremely unpopular. They called him the hunger prime minister. And then the result was that he lost his seat in parliament, and Hitler came to power. So, these are very complex questions. I think that generally speaking, both sides, in the classic sense, I know it sounds like a boring issue to bring up, but they both ought to reduce costs and cut down on government. I mean, because ultimately, we will have to pay the cost of this. I mean, no, there's not. Let me just see. So anyway, this is an open lines program. You're welcome to join in. I'm going to stay up here briefly today. 617-396-4958. Charles Moscowitz, 617-396-4958. Let's see. There was an interesting headline yesterday in the Drudge Report indicating that it looks like the state of Oregon will be implementing a perpetual and permanent mandate to force people to wear masks. I mean, I refer to it seems to me like it's almost like a Sharia type situation, where people, it's like a religious thing. I don't know. Is there any science behind that? It's just it's odd to me that that would be taking place, but at the same time, it does, any basic understanding of authoritarianism, and particularly when it is embraced by the authoritarian oriented left, which is authoritarianism in its essence. And the proof of that, of course, is that the left-leaning states are the authoritarian states, whereas the red states, the more conservative states, are not. Florida, Texas, they are moving on from this. I think that Governor DeSantis, who did a much better job of protecting the elderly in that state than the left-wing Cuomo, obviously, he has said that if you're vaccinated, then you've got immunity and you should move on and act like you've got immunity, and that the mandates are over in that state and they're over in Texas. And in a sense, I mean, whether that is a direct reason or a correlation, nevertheless, the cases of COVID-19 in those states are precipitously dropping. Whereas you have Michigan now, where it's an epicenter of increase in COVID-19. And you have a governor there who has said that restrictions on businesses are going to be permanent and perpetual. To me, this is power drunk, you know, activity. And I'm not surprised. I mean, I figured that, as a byproduct of the lockdowns, whether or not they should have ever happened, that's up for debate. But the fact is that when they did happen, I assumed, and I think a lot of people did, that with that kind of power in the hands of the state, they will never relinquish it. They'll just shift it over to something else. It's not the kind of thing that, when you have power and you obtain power, especially when you do so without much opposition, you're not likely to relinquish that power anytime soon. So it doesn't surprise me at all to see that Michigan Governor Whitmer is instituting permanent restrictions on businesses. And I would imagine that that policy will continue. So if anyone has a thought on that, you're welcome to join me at 617-396-4958, 617-396-4958. What else is going on? You have Maxine Waters, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, went to Brooklyn, Minnesota, and was inciting violence by any standards. Gave a speech in which she said she wanted BLM rioters and Antifa rioters in that city, which are burning businesses, predominantly, by the way, minority and African-American businesses, are looting them. That she said she called for them to, quote, get more confrontational, unquote. And shortly after she delivered that speech, there was a huge increase in violence and attempted murders. And I think that there are some people that are saying that she has a direct connection to that. I would argue she does. And in Congress, Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia is asking for her to be expelled from Congress because of that. I wonder if Twitter and Facebook are going to remove her from her sites for inciting violence, like they claim President Trump did, which he didn't. Um, I don't know. It's interesting, but it's really despicable that they would be doing this and threatening jurors that if they don't decide a case in a certain way, then they're personally going to be harmed, and that the country is going to burn. What they'll do, I mean, like they've done in the past, at least last summer, is burn, loot black businesses, burn black neighborhoods, and probably kill a lot of black people. Talk about racist. Anyway, um, Fredo Cuomo, the host at CNN, says there won't be police reform until, quote, white people's kids start getting killed, unquote. Boy, that's nice. I wonder if he has in his mind his own white kids, or maybe he's thinking of somebody else's white kids, however that's defined. So more advocacy of violence, more advocacy of terror. I think that police have made mistakes and there ought to be some reforms. In fact, President Trump, right after the George Floyd killing, he tried to implement. He presented to Congress a bill that would have resulted in substantial reforms, and that was opposed by left-wing Congresspeople like AOC and others because they didn't want Trump to look good, right? Same reason why they opposed a $3.5 million, what was it, $1 billion supplement to help refugees at the border with humanitarian assistance. Back when, remember, Trump was accused of building cages. It was opposed by people like AOC and these radicals because they didn't want Trump to look good. They don't give a crap about people, about children. It passed anyway. And we might remember that after it passed, we didn't hear anything more about it until now. That's another story about what's going on the border. Anyways, let's see what else is happening. Costco has bowed to the leftist mob, and they have stopped selling pillows made by wrong thinker, right? Quote unquote. You know who I'm talking about. The Pillow Man, Mike Lindell, who, by the way, is, I think any day, I understand it's going to be this week, releasing and making available his social network site, which is called frank.tv, I think. And, it's going to be a site which will not be censored. I'm certainly going to be all over that. I would recommend you look into it. Look up Mike Lindell Frank TV, and you'll get more information. But of course, he's being censored, as are we all. I don't know how long my program is going to be on the air. I think the only reason I'm still here is because I'm not big enough to bring too much notice. Although I've been demonetized and I've been shadow banned, and I've had videos taken off. And in this atmosphere, I never know whether or not the station's still going to be up the next day. That's the world we're living in right now. And I'm an experienced veteran radio host. I know what's appropriate for community standards. And I also know what's appropriate for free speech. And I know how to observe those standards, and I do. So if they take me down, it's because they don't like my opinions. They don't, and they want to censor those opinions. There is no other explanation. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up at this point. I was having a guest today who couldn't make it, so I'm going to have to reschedule. That being Dan Leroy, by the way, is the author of Liberty's Lions. Interesting book. He talks about Roman Catholics and their involvement in the American Revolution. And I like a history like that because it's often one that is an alternative. Anyway, so I want to thank you all for joining me this afternoon. Charles Moscowitz. Please subscribe to me on YouTube, and please subscribe to me on TikTok. My books are available at Amazon Books. My new book, The Satanic Conspiracy, should be out by the end of this month. I'm just putting the finishing touches on it now. And anyway, on that note, I shall wish you all a wonderful afternoon. God bless all of you. God bless America.